All right, guys, welcome into this video. It's Joe here from Financially Savvy. Hope you're all doing well. What I wanted to do in this video today was run through how I track my portfolio. One question I get a lot from my clients, people on social media, etc., is how do you track your portfolio? How do you keep track of all of the positions you have across different accounts? Because if you're, any way along your journey with investing, you've got your personal investments, maybe individual stocks in a taxable brokerage or an ISA if you're in the UK or something like that. You've got a pension account, a 401k workplace pension, you've got IRAs, you've got crypto accounts, you've got maybe like some funds that you're holding elsewhere, and you end up with about 4 or 5 different apps that you've got to log into every single month or week or year or however often you do it, just to see where you're at, right? And all you're getting is little pieces of the puzzle. So what I want to show you is how I track my entire portfolio. So all of those things combined using a really, really powerful tool, which you can see on the screen here, to give me an overall picture, to give me readouts of my analytics and help me understand what I need to see so that I can make informed decisions going forward. Okay, so what we're looking at right here is the platform called Snowball. This is my dashboard, which represents everything I am currently invested in. Okay, so you can see up here, I've got my current net worth. This is obviously not including my real estate and assets outside of just stocks and funds, the things that I'm, assets that I'm buying via apps and platforms and things like that. This is purely, assets in the sense of cryptocurrencies, stocks, funds, ETFs, index funds, that kind of stuff. Okay, so you can see here my net worth, which represents all of that. And then you've got the individual accounts. So my Coinbase account, my Head and Over account, my ISA, and my SIP. So the great thing about this platform is it combines everything on this one specific dashboard to give you a readout of everything. Okay. What I really like is it allows me to see what my total allocation is versus my target allocation. So you can see here, I've broken mine down really, really simply. I think I want to know how much I've got in funds, which are the foundation of my entire portfolio. So I aim to have around 70%, 70 to 75% of my entire portfolio invested in at any one time. So you can see my allocation here, 70%. I'm currently at 71%. Then I've got growth stocks, which essentially is one category that I've split into two, which is growth stocks and dividend stocks, just because I want to see how they're doing separately. But overall, I want a 20% allocation to individual stocks. So growth stocks and dividend stocks. Growth stocks is 15% target allocation, you can see there, and dividend stocks is a target allocation of 5%. You can see I'm a little bit under that right now, and it's something I'm working on building up. And this is what I mean, right? It allows me to see where I'm actually at and have it broken down into these little pieces so I can see specifically with data, and I love numbers, so this is amazing for me, exactly where I'm at, and then I can make investment decisions based on sound data and information, which is unbelievably powerful because 99% of people are just winging it. They're just buying this, that, and the other, which isn't, the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world would be them not investing at all. But this means that they're making informed decisions, which is so powerful. And then you can see I've got my other, which represents 10%, and that's split into two categories, which are my Head and Over fund, which is a hedge fund which invests in alternative assets, gives me exposure to things like wine and startups and art and all sorts of other things like litigation finance and royalties and all that kind of thing. So things that I couldn't buy through an investing app. So that gives me diversified exposure to all of those different kinds of assets. And then I've got crypto, which is essentially just Bitcoin mostly and Ethereum, right? And you can see my target allocation is 5% there, and it's something that I've been building up over the last few months. But what I love is it allows me to see my analytics for my portfolio as a whole. Not only as a whole, but I can go in to see my analytics for each individual account as well. Okay, now I want to try and keep this video short, so I'm just going to give you some of the highlights here. But essentially what I can see is on this analytics dashboard is every stock I've ever held, how many shares I owned, cost per share, cost basis, profit loss, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, really, really powerful. But what I really want to see is my growth. I want to see my performance and how I'm comparing to the key benchmarks that I care about, such as the S&P 500, because everyone wants to know how they're doing versus the market. And when they say the market, they're talking about the S&P 500. I want to see how I'm doing against ARK, the innovation fund, because that's, high volatility, high growth stocks. So I want to see how I'm doing against that. and I want to see how I'm doing against the global market because I am a global investor. I invest in stocks both in the UK, Europe, and the US. So I want to see how I'm comparing to just versus just putting money into a global fund, right? And what this allows me to see is I've got my portfolio down here. If I hover over it, it highlights it, right? You can see that. So that it highlights the blue line. I can see my portfolio is basically crushing all of it, which is amazing. And then I can see that versus the S&P 500. I can see that versus ARK. And if I hover along it, it tells me what the values are going along it, which is really, really nice to see. And you can see essentially I'm up versus everything. So I'm 6.5% up against the S&P 500. I'm 18% up against ARK. So I'm doing better than Cathie Wood. Not that that's the hardest thing in the world. And I'm up 8% versus the global market. And this is obviously year to date. So then I can flick back and forward between 7 day, 1 month, 3 month, 1 year, 5 year, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. But either way, I'm up. So that's what I want to see. And then you've got portfolio performance. So you can see as a whole against all of these benchmarks, right? Compared, I'm up around 10% versus everything on a year to date basis. Let's have a look at a year. If it's loading, I'm up 27%. So even better, 5 years. This is where it might go wrong. Let's have a look. You can see, give it a second. 28% versus those three benchmarks. So, I'm where I want to be. And then you can see a year by year, a month by month breakdown of how the portfolio is doing versus the benchmarks. And then it's got all of your holdings performance. Okay. Now, I'm not a dividend investor, but I'm going to show you this tab anyway, because it's nice to see. But if you are a dividend investor, this is next level. So it's going to show you what your yield is for each individual stock that you're owning, what the reliability of your dividend stocks is, the dividend rating as a whole for your portfolio. It's going to show you your average annual growth, your future payments, your dividends received, all of this kind of stuff. And there's a great tool for being able to forecast what your dividends will one day be worth as well, based on current and historical growth numbers and things like that. It's unbelievably powerful. And like I said, this is just the overall dashboard of my entire portfolio. What I can then do is I can go into, for example, my ISA. So this is where all my individual stocks are held, right? And I can see what my growth is here, for example, for this specific portfolio. So you can see this one was actually slightly behind the S&P 500 and the global market, like year to date for a few months, but has actually just taken over. So you can see it's still doing very, very well, and things look like they're turning around and improving. So it allows me to see that kind of stuff, right? And there's all sorts of things on here. Okay, all I do in order to keep track of this every single month is I come into each account, right? So I come into my individual stock portfolio. I'll click on this plus. I will import a spreadsheet. I'll go to the app, which it tells you what to do right here with these screenshots, right? I'll download the activity feed for my entire activity, send it to my MacBook. I'll drag and drop the CSV file into this little box here, and it will just update everything. I'll click complete, and it will just update everything. I go to my dashboard. It updates all of the numbers across the entire platform, and then gives me a real-time feed out of where I'm currently at. I do that for my individual stocks. Coinbase is updated automatically. Head and over, I have to update manually, but it's not hard. It's only one position. And then my SIP is updated automatically as well. And then I can go to my overall net worth tab. I can see how I'm doing with my allocations, right? So I can move my face out of the way here. I can have a look at my allocations. I can change my allocations if I want to. I can see the pie chart or not see the pie chart, all of that kind of stuff, right? And I can see where I'm at in terms of the allocations I want to be at versus where I'm actually at. And again, then as more capital comes into my accounts, as I get paid every week or month, and I have more money to invest, I can then update all of these numbers, put money where it needs to be to make sure that I'm keeping my allocations as balanced as I want them to be, right? So say, for example, right now, I'm actually at 22% plus 1%. So I'm at about 23.5% for my individual stocks versus the 20% I want to be at. So when I get more capital in this month, I'm going to put more of my money into my head and over and my cryptocurrency allocations because they're currently below where I want them to be. And that means I have this real-time, constantly fluid, plan of where to put my money based on real-time data, and I can't tell you how powerful that is. So I will say as well, so Snowball are incredible, as you can see. Like, I've not found anything close to what these guys can do. They actually have, I saw this when I opened up the app this morning when I went to make this video. They have 30% off until the 14th, so for the next 3 days. So I'll leave a link below this video where you can go and sign up, because if you're not using something like this, you are just guessing, you are stabbing in the dark, and you are probably not optimizing you don't have an optimized investment strategy if you're not using this platform. So I'll leave the link below so you can go and get signed up and get 30% off as well as part of the sale they're doing. Any questions on it though, drop the comments below and I'll be happy to help.